From the moment Karen was elected HOA president, I knew she would be trouble. She was the type of person who thrived on control, always sticking her nose into other people's business and enforcing absurd rules with an iron fist. At first, her targets were minor: fining homeowners for slightly overgrown grass, demanding that people repaint their mailboxes, and even threatening to evict an elderly couple for having a decorative garden gnome she deemed tacky. But nothing compared to what she did next. One day, Karen set her sights on something much bigger: our local school. As a teacher at the school, I had always considered it to be a vital part of our community. It was a small, well-kept institution that served hundreds of local children. Parents loved it. The staff was dedicated, and it was one of the few remaining public schools in the area that hadn't been swallowed up by gentrification. But Karen didn't see it that way. To her, the school was nothing but an eyesore and a nuisance that brought the wrong kind of people into the neighborhood. She was obsessed with the idea that the school lowered property values and brought traffic to her streets. It started with complaints, subtle at first. Karen began attending school board meetings, ranting about how the morning and afternoon school traffic made it impossible for her to get out of her driveway, despite her home being nowhere near the school. She claimed that the sound of children playing during recess was a disturbance to the HOA members who worked from home. When no one took her complaints seriously, she escalated her tactics. Suddenly, the school began receiving anonymous reports about violations, complaints about unsafe conditions, and unauthorized community disruptions. The fire department was called for a random safety inspection, and rumors spread that someone had anonymously reported the school for violating zoning laws. The administration was baffled, but I knew exactly who was behind it. Karen had declared war on the school, and she wouldn't stop until she got what she wanted. Things took an even more sinister turn when I overheard Karen talking to a few HOA members at a community event. "I have friends at the city planning office," she bragged. "We'll get rid of that school soon enough. Just wait." That's when I realized she wasn't just trying to shut us down. She wanted the building demolished. Karen had started working behind the scenes, pulling strings to get the land rezoned, so a private developer could swoop in and build expensive luxury condos. She was even spreading false rumors that the school was financially failing and would inevitably close anyway. The lies were piling up, and if no one fought back, she just might get her way. Her next move was straight out of a villain's playbook. The school received an official notice from the city, stating that a proposal had been submitted to evaluate the school's viability as a community institution. If Karen succeeded in getting enough support, the city would force the school to relocate or demolish it entirely. Parents were outraged, teachers were panicking, and the entire neighborhood was buzzing with uncertainty. Karen, of course, acted as if she was doing the community a favor. She sent out HOA-wide emails stating that removing the school would enhance property values and reduce unwanted traffic. She hosted HOA meetings where she spun false statistics, claiming that the school had low enrollment and was a financial burden on taxpayers. It was all lies, but Karen knew how to manipulate people, especially the wealthier residents who cared more about their property value than about children losing their education. The final straw came when Karen boldly announced that she was pushing for a demolition order. That's right, she wasn't just trying to relocate the school. She was actively pushing for it to be bulldozed. The news sent shockwaves through the school staff and parents. People couldn't believe she was going this far, but Karen was ruthless. At this point, I knew I had no choice but to fight back. This wasn't just about a personal vendetta anymore. This was about protecting our community and our children. If we didn't stop her, Karen was going to destroy something that had stood for decades, all because of her selfish desire for power and control. It was time to expose her corruption and put an end to her plans before it was too late. The moment Karen announced her push for a demolition order, I knew we had to act fast. If she got her way, the school wouldn't just be shut down. It would be completely wiped off the map, replaced by overpriced condos that only serve her interests. Parents, teachers, and community members were furious, but Karen had power, connections, and an agenda. The fight to save our school wasn't going to be easy. The first thing I did was organize an emergency community meeting at the school. We needed to gather as much support as possible before Karen could manipulate more people into siding with her. Flyers were sent out, emails were blasted, and social media groups were buzzing with activity. By the time the meeting started, the auditorium was packed. Parents, teachers, alumni, and even local business owners showed up, eager to fight back. We laid everything out. The lies Karen had been spreading, the backroom deals she was making with developers, and the fake complaints she had been filing. I had even compiled evidence of Karen's history of HOA abuse, showing how she had harassed homeowners with bogus violations and manipulated HOA funds for her personal gain. The anger in the room was palpable. People were finally waking up to the fact that this wasn't about noise or traffic. This was about greed. Karen, of course, was furious that we had dared to challenge her. The very next day, the school received another complaint, this time from the HOA itself, claiming that school events were violating community disturbance rules. It was clearly another one of her intimidation tactics, but we weren't going to back down. At this point, we needed legal backup. A few parents had connections with a local attorney who specialized in zoning laws and community disputes. When he reviewed the case, his eyes widened. "This is blatant corruption," he said. "If Karen is pushing for a rezoning ordinance, she has to prove that the school is a detriment to the community. And based on your enrollment numbers and community support, she doesn't have a case." That's when we discovered something huge. One of the parents, who happened to be an investigative journalist, dug into Karen's dealings and found proof that she had direct ties to the developer who wanted to build the condos. Not only was she pushing for the school's demolition, but she was set to receive a financial kickback if the deal went through. It was outright fraud. She had been abusing her position as HOA president for personal financial gain. We now had concrete evidence of Karen's corruption. The next step was going public. We organized a press conference in front of the school, inviting local news stations and reporters. Parents, teachers, and students held up signs demanding Karen's removal. We revealed the developer connection, the fraudulent complaints, and the illegal tactics she had been using to push her agenda. The story exploded overnight. Social media went wild, and soon, even city officials were being questioned about why they were considering Karen's proposal in the first place. Karen, meanwhile, was losing control. She had always thrived on manipulating the HOA and bullying individual homeowners, but now she was facing a full-blown public backlash. She tried to do damage control, calling the press conference a smear campaign and claiming she was only acting in the best interest of the community. But no one believed her. To make matters worse for her, our attorney filed an official legal challenge to her demolition request. City officials were now under scrutiny, and since Karen's fraudulent connections had been exposed, her rezoning petition was immediately put on hold. The battle wasn't over yet, but we had struck a major blow. With her plans crumbling, Karen resorted to one last dirty trick. She somehow convinced a city inspector to visit the school under the pretense of a safety evaluation. If they could declare the building unsafe, she might still have a shot at getting it condemned. But we were ready. The moment the inspector arrived, we had multiple witnesses, including lawyers and reporters on site. The school had passed every previous inspection with flying colors, and when the inspector found nothing wrong, Karen's last hope vanished. The final showdown was approaching, and Karen was running out of options. We had one more move to make, a city council hearing that would determine, once and for all, whether Karen's demolition plan would be permanently shut down. The day of the city council hearing arrived, and the atmosphere was electric. This wasn't just a routine meeting anymore. Karen's corruption had been exposed, and the entire community was watching. Parents, teachers, and even former students packed the city hall, holding signs that read "Save Our School" and "No to Karen's Greed." The media was covering the event, and social media was blowing up with outrage. Karen, however, strutted into the hearing as if she still had the upper hand. She wore her signature smug expression, flanked by a few of her remaining supporters. wealthy HOA members who still clung to the idea that tearing down the school would increase their property values. But this time, Karen wasn't in control. The hearing began with a presentation of the rezoning proposal, and Karen finally had to argue her case in public. She put on a dramatic show, claiming the school was a community burden and a safety risk. She rambled about traffic congestion and declining property values, twisting statistics and cherry-picking data. But she had no real evidence, just exaggerations and fear-mongering. Then, it was our turn. Our attorney shredded her arguments one by one. Traffic concerns? The city's own report showed that traffic near the school was well within acceptable limits and had actually improved after recent adjustments. Noise complaints? The so-called disruptive events Karen cited were regular school activities that had existed for decades. Financial burden? The school was actually one of the best-funded public institutions in the district with strong community support. Then, we dropped the bombshell, the evidence of Karen's corruption. Our investigative journalist stepped forward and presented emails, financial records, and recorded statements proving that Karen had secretly coordinated with the real estate developer. She had lobbied for the school's demolition in exchange for financial kickbacks, planning to profit off the luxury condos that would replace it. Gasps filled the room. Karen's face turned ghostly pale. The council members, who had once seemed neutral, now looked furious. They immediately began grilling Karen, questioning her motives and demanding explanations. Karen stammered, fumbled, and tried to deny everything. "This is a witch hunt," she shrieked. "I did what was best for the community." But the evidence was indisputable. Then the final blow came. The city's legal team revealed that the demolition order had been fast-tracked under shady circumstances. Karen had pulled illegal favors to try and rush it through. Now, not only was her proposal dead in the water, but Karen herself was facing serious consequences. Her HOA authority was revoked. She was personally fined for fraud and zoning violations. The HOA faced a lawsuit for harassment and corruption. The council officially ruled that the school would remain untouched, and the demolition request was permanently denied. Karen sat there, humiliated, as the crowd erupted into cheers. Her entire scheme had collapsed in front of everyone, and she had no way out. As she stormed out of City Hall, cameras followed her, capturing her downfall for the world to see. Her once loyal HOA supporters turned on her, realizing she had lied to them for her own gain. The HOA board removed her from her position, and multiple homeowners began filing official complaints about her past abuses. Within a month, Karen sold her house and moved out of the neighborhood, disgraced and ostracized. The school, on the other hand, thrived. The massive public support led to new funding initiatives, upgrades to the building, and a stronger sense of community than ever before. And as for me, I finally got to teach without worrying about Karen's interference, knowing that our school had stood strong against corruption. In the end, Karen tried to bulldoze our future, but she only succeeded in bulldozing her own reputation.